Talk 2 Fluency from beginner to fluent.
Take your English skills to the next level.
Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're really jumping into something that honestly can feel pretty daunting for a lot of English learners. That's the IELTS speaking test. Our mission today is to sort of unpack the key differences, what separates those high-scoring students, band 7s, 8s, even the 9s, from those who maybe get a bit stuck, perhaps at band 5 or 6.
Right.
And we want to give you some, surprisingly simple techniques, things you can actually learn easily to help boost your confidence and ultimately your performance. So test day feels less like fear and more like, okay, I know what to do.
Exactly. And the IELTS speaking test, it's structured, it's a conversation, but it has parts. We'll break down all 3 of those parts. We'll look at what those top students do, yes, but also why it works, why it makes such a difference.
Okay, great. Let's get into it then. Part 1. I sometimes think of this as the first impression zone.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
It seems crucial, not just for making that good first impression on the examiner, but maybe even more importantly, for you, the test taker, to just relax a bit. Settle into it.
Absolutely crucial. If you can relax in part 1, it genuinely affects your fluency for the whole rest of the test.
So what goes wrong here for, say, band 5 or 6 students? What's a common trip up?
Well, a really big one, honestly, is relying on memorized answers.
Yeah.
It's a huge problem. You see, the test isn't about reciting something you learned by heart. It's checking if you can actually communicate. And when you speak from memory, it sounds robotic, like you're reading out loud in school or something.
Right. It lacks that natural flow.
Exactly. And frankly, examiners pick up on it immediately. It can even look like you're trying to kind of, cheat the system. It just makes you sound less fluent and pulls your score down.
It sounds stiff, unnatural. I get that. What else?
Another thing is going off topic, or maybe giving answers that are just way too long.
Too long. How long is too long?
Well, think about it. The examiner has a list of questions for part 1, usually somewhere between 9 and 12 questions they need to get through.
9 to 12, okay.
Yeah. So if you give this long, rambling answer, maybe one you've memorized,
They have to cut you off.
they have to interrupt you, exactly. And being interrupted, especially when you're already stressed, it just ramps up the anxiety.
Yeah, that would throw me off for sure.
Yeah.
Makes you feel like you did something wrong.
Precisely. And then you might sound even more robotic because you're flustered.
Okay, so those are the pitfalls.
Yeah.
What are the band 7, 8, and 9 students doing differently in part 1? What's their approach?
It's actually surprisingly straightforward. They just speak naturally.
Naturally, like how?
Like you're having a normal chat with a friend or maybe a colleague. They avoid slipping into that stressed out test mode where everything tightens up and fluency just plummets.
Okay.
They answer the question directly, nice and clear. And then, this is key, they add just a little bit more detail.
That's a little. What kind of detail?
Oh, it doesn't have to be complicated. It could be a simple explanation for their answer. Or maybe a general example, like describing an iPhone if the question was about technology.
Or maybe a personal touch.
Yeah, or a short personal story related to the question. The point isn't fancy words or complex structures here. It's just showing you can communicate naturally.
It's about connection, showing you can actually hold a conversation, not just perform. That makes a lot of sense.
Right. And once you feel comfortable with that kind of natural back and forth in part 1, then comes part 2, the extended talk.
Ah, yes. The one everyone dreads.
It often is, yeah. Speaking for up to 2 minutes on a topic you've just been given in a language that isn't your first, under pressure, it's understandably intimidating.
Absolutely. So what's the typical mistake here for the band and 5 or 6 students? How do they usually approach this task?
The classic mistake is treating the bullet points on the cue card like a strict checklist.
Okay, like first I answer point 1, then point 2.
Exactly. Address bullet point 1, finish. Address bullet point 2, finish. And so on.
Why is that a problem? Doesn't it give you structure?
It does, but it's often a limiting structure. What if you don't actually have much to say about one of the points?
Yeah.
Let's say the card asks you to describe, some food or drink you learned to prepare. Maybe you think of making a Bloody Mary from a YouTube video.
Okay.
If you just rigidly answer what it is and how you learned, you might only speak for, 20 or 30 seconds?
Right, then you're stuck. Panic sets in.
Total panic. Your fluency drops like a stone, or maybe there's a bullet point you just don't feel comfortable talking about. Sticking to that structure becomes a trap.
Okay, that rigid checklist approach sounds counterproductive then. So what's the alternative? How do the high-scoring students handle part 2? What's their mindset?
The big shift is this. They don't obsess over the bullet points as a required sequence. They see the main topic on the card.
The main topic, right.
And they use that as a launch pad. They give themselves the freedom to talk about anything relevant to that main topic that they feel comfortable with. They essentially tell a story or give a description related to the core idea.
So they don't ignore the bullet points entirely, but they're not chained to them.
Exactly. They might touch on them naturally, but they prioritize keeping the flow going. They might add a detailed description, weave in a personal story, talk about how they feel about the topic, maybe mention something from its past or what they hope to do with it in the future.
Anything that keeps them talking fluently.
Anything. The goal is to keep speaking until the examiner actually signals you to stop. Even if you start thinking, oh gosh, this is nonsense, keep going, it shows you have the stamina and the ability to maintain fluency. That's what's being tested.
So back to that food example. Instead of just Bloody Mary YouTube.
Right. A Band 9 student might talk about learning to make, say, paneer. And they might connect it to, well, maybe being pescatarian or having a gluten intolerance.
Bringing in other related ideas.
Exactly. Maybe they talk about nutrition, their personal food preferences, the first time they tried it, who they cooked it for. They expand way beyond just the basic steps of the recipe. They build a whole narrative around it.
That sounds much more engaging and much less stressful than trying to hit bullet points. It turns part 2 from a test into, well, an actual opportunity to talk about something.
It really is. It's your chance to shine, to show what you can do when you have the floor for a couple of minutes. No need for worry or stress if you approach it this way.
Okay, that reframes part 2 significantly. Now let's move to the final section, part 3, the deeper dive. This one often feels like the toughest.
It generally is, yes. The questions here are designed to be more challenging. They're more abstract, less personal, and they really require you to think a bit more deeply and develop your answers.
I can imagine people feeling fatigued by this point, too.
Yeah.
What are the absolute no-nos in part 3? What should you definitely avoid doing?
Number 1, without a doubt, is giving no response.
Just silence.
Silence, or saying, I don't know, or maybe just laughing awkwardly. Unfortunately, that sends a clear signal to the examiner. Your English isn't quite up to tackling this level of question.
Okay, so always say something. What else?
Avoid really short, underdeveloped answers. Sometimes this isn't even about lacking the English ability. Test takers are tired by part 3.
15 minutes of speaking in another language? Yeah, it's training.
It is. So sometimes people just kind of surrender. They give up on developing their answers fully.
That makes sense. But, I've heard this rumor, maybe it's a myth, that if you start getting really difficult questions in part 3, it's actually a good sign. Is that true?
It's absolutely true. Believe it or not, getting those harder questions is a very positive signal.
Really? Why?
It means the examiner thinks you might be capable of a high score band 7, 8, or 9. They're asking those tougher, more abstract questions specifically to push you, to stretch your speaking ability so they can differentiate between those top bands.
Huh. So if you get a question that feels really hard, you shouldn't panic. You should actually think, okay, they think I might be good.
Exactly. Take it as a compliment. Then you need to tackle it.
So how do those high band students do that? When they get this abstract, tricky question, how do they structure a response? What's the approach?
First, and most importantly, always attempt an answer, even if the topic feels completely unfamiliar.
Even if you genuinely don't know much about it.
Yes, you can preface it, say something like, that's an interesting question. I'm not really an expert on topic, but from what I understand, or, well, I haven't thought much about that. However, I suppose one perspective could be.
Right. Acknowledge the unfamiliarity, but still try.
Exactly. Remember, it's a speaking test, not a knowledge test or an IQ test. Just making an attempt shows the examiner you have the linguistic tools and the willingness to engage, which supports a higher score. And sometimes trying might prompt the examiner to maybe shift to a related topic you know better.
Okay, so always attempt. Then what? How do they build the answer?
They definitely tend to structure it, especially for complex questions. A good structure might be, first, directly answer the question. Give your main point.
Okay, straight away.
Then explain why you think that. Give your reasoning. Or maybe explain why other people might think that.
Provide some justification.
Yes. Then, crucially, back it up. Use examples, maybe a short personal story if appropriate, or general examples. If the question was about, say, skills needed to be a great chef, you might mention patience, passion, creating a good atmosphere, and give brief reasons why.
Examples make it concrete.
They do. And then, to really develop it, you could show the other side of the argument, introduce a nuance, or add another related point to show you can explore the topic more fully.
So it's about showing you can think critically and express complex ideas, not just give a simple opinion.
Precisely. And you know, the interesting thing is, across all three parts, the real overarching lesson seems to be about making it feel like a normal conversation.
That keeps coming up.
It does. High-scoring students use the English they already have, maybe steering things subtly towards topics they're comfortable with. But the main thing is they communicate naturally and clearly. It's not about tricks.
I remember hearing feedback for a student once. Great pronunciation, good grammar, wide vocabulary, but they weren't scoring high.
And often the reason is coherence and development. They weren't adding enough detail, enough explanation, enough examples, particularly in part 1 and part 3. Or in part 2, they stopped too soon instead of speaking for the full time.
So it's not just about being correct. It's about showing the range of your communication skills, showing you can actually discuss things.
Exactly that. You need to demonstrate the full scope of your English.
So when we boil it all down, what's a common thread for success in the IELTS speaking test?
It really is that ability to make it feel less like a test and more like a natural, flowing conversation. High scorers aren't using secret tricks or trying to somehow game the system.
Because you can't really cheat communication.
You really can't. Success genuinely comes from using the English you have, confidently and clearly, letting your natural ability to communicate shine through.
And I guess the final piece, the non-negotiable part, is practice. None of this works if you don't actually try it out repeatedly.
Absolutely essential. You have to practice these approaches, talking naturally in part 1, telling a story in part 2, structuring your thoughts in part 3 until they feel second nature. Consistent, deliberate practice is what turns these strategies into skills you can rely on under pressure on test day.
It's about building that conversational muscle memory.
That's a great way to put it. It's about learning to own the conversation.
Fantastic insights. Thank you so much for breaking that down for us.
My pleasure. And for everyone listening, keep practicing. You'll get there. And see you later, and Talk to Fluency YouTube channel. Subscribe for more. Bye.
Talk to Fluency from beginner to fluent.
Take your English skills to the next level.